Hey Faith family, it's Brother Mario, and you're here for a really exciting evening. This evening, I'm inviting a guest who is, in fact, the Atheist Troll on Instagram. I didn't call him that. That's what he chose to be his own personal name. I know some of you had thought that I called him a troll and insulted him. That's not what I did at all. So his name is Jeff, and he's decided to come on this evening to have a dialogue and a little bit of a debate, back and forth. We're going to go through some disagreements and different viewpoints. And if you haven't seen episode 1, I'll go ahead in the YouTube comment when I upload this to YouTube. I'll leave it in the pinned comment. I had a conversation, a dialogue, a debate with a free thinker. I'll call her a New Ager, and I really enjoyed that experience. And what I'm setting out to do in this video series that's a little bit different than what you're going to see in your normal debate is I'm not looking for mocking, trying to feel better than the other, putting them down. Oftentimes I find that the modern debate format leads to a lot of pride, a lot of ego, and all that stuff. And so I'm really trying to avoid that. You could call these evangelistic dialogues. And what I mean by that is I'm trying to reach people. And I don't think I'm going to reach people if I'm just hateful and, trying to feel right and all that stuff. So this evening, I'm genuinely interested in discussing issues about God, creation, atheism, Christianity with our guest, the Atheist Troll, who just joined us. What's up, Jeff? And we're going to bring on in a moment here. So I just want to speak to my audience as well. Be loving, guys. There's no need to go back and forth in a hostile way. I really just want to encourage that we're respectful and loving to one another as we engage in these conversations. Let's go ahead, Jeff. If you're ready, I'll bring you on. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. You, man?
Just trying to get this set so that you can see me correctly.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, how's the audio sound?
It's good on my end. If
okay, cool.
Everyone in the chat, if you guys have an issue, just let us know. But I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect.
Awesome. So thank you so much for coming on this evening. I really do appreciate it. As I was telling the audience, it's going to be a little bit different. We're just going to have a conversation here, go a little bit back and forth. And I'm genuinely interested as to where you got to where you are. So you're known as the Atheist Troll here on Instagram. And how did you get there? I mean, how do we find you here today sitting with us? And, obviously you feel like this is something that's important for you to do. You've set out to do this. And I really just want to get to understanding a little bit about that. Just a general opening question. What's your background? How did you get here? And
So I grew up in a very large Roman Catholic family. So both sides of my mom and dad are both Roman Catholic. 5 aunts and uncles. Well, 6 aunt and uncles combined,
right.
All Roman Catholic, all my cousins Roman Catholic, all the social events during my youth were Roman Catholic events until high school. So I grew up in a little bit further north of Atlanta, Georgia, which is basically the Baptist Bible Belt.
Okay.
And went to a non-denominational Christian high school. And that was kind of the first time that I had been exposed to something other than Catholicism. And so there I found myself having to defend the faith of Catholicism against, these non-Catholic Protestants. And also
that can get pretty heated.
Yeah, it is. And that's when I started realizing, like, we don't have a unified belief system here. It doesn't matter. Everybody's kind of just making this up as they go along. And I need to determine which one of these people is correct. Like, I need to determine which denomination of Christianity is correct.
Okay.
That's kind of the back of my mind. I still, because of indoctrination, believes Catholicism to be correct, because again, all the people that I respect as authority were Catholic. So obviously, in my mind, it was like that's true. So graduate high school, do my thing. I ended up moving out west. And that's when I kind of like started doing a little bit more self-discovery with my political views, my religious views, like just really deep diving into why I believe what I believe. Right. And that's when I was like, can I be sure that Christianity is even the right religion? Like we have all these denominations that I'm trying to narrow down. Well, let's narrow it to Christianity. And that's kind of when I was like, I don't see a difference in proof between Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Scientology, whatever. I don't think we have a test, at least one has not been presented to me, where we can take an ideology, religious ideology, put it through a test and say, yes, this is correct.
Okay.
So that puts me at the position of atheism. That puts me at the position of we don't know. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, as far as the problem is, and you're not one of these people, but you know what I'm talking about when I talk about religious zealots and people that are out there with these doomsday prophecies or, death to homosexuals or whatever. And it could be Christians, it could be any other religion, but those people can't be reasoned with. Those people don't need debates and discussions. Those people need trolling. So that's when that comes out. So if somebody takes something to an extreme where, they're calling for the death of homosexuals or whatever, I wouldn't spend time arguing with that person over the merits. I would just sort of have fun with it. And that's kind of where the trolling comes involved. It's sort of counter-trolling the people that, for lack of a better term, don't know what they're doing or, just kind of stupid. So that's kind of that. It's very rare that I'm going to take somebody that's a genuine interest and tell them to, go screw themselves and, say something out of control. I just go to ad absurdum, I'm just arguing ad absurdum at that point because they're arguing ad absurdum. I'm just meeting them where they're at.
Okay.
You're not one of those people. So,
yeah. So with atheism, could you give a definition of what atheism is? Because I know as a Christian, like you mentioned, there's different viewpoints and certain people believe different things of what it takes to be a Christian, what it is. So if I was to ask you, what is an atheist? How would you define that?
So a lack of belief of a deity.
Okay.
That's
a lack of belief. So is it like you're certain that there's not?
No, okay, so I'm not certain.
Okay.
So I would consider that anti-theism.
Okay.
So I think of it this way: when you're born, like as an infant, you don't believe in a God because you haven't been told about one yet. Okay. That's the default position. Like we're all at that default position. Until you flip the switch to say I believe in blank, then you're atheist. In my opinion. So, but once you say, yeah, I believe in this, deity or whatever, then, okay, you flip the switch off of atheist. Now, I haven't flipped the switch to saying, I say there's no God. Like that would be another switch to flip that I have not flipped that switch. That's something different. That's a switch in the other direction,
Right. But wouldn't that be agnostic, though, where you're still open to the idea? So you're more of an atheist agnostic, like you lean towards the possibility of a God beyond your understanding, right?
Yeah, those two different questions there. Do I believe in a God? And do I know if there is no God? So knowledge would be Gnosticism. If I knew that there is a God, then I'm Gnostic. If I don't know if there is a God, then I'm agnostic. So you could be an agnostic atheist. You could be an agnostic atheist. You could be a Gnostic Christian. You could be an agnostic Christian. I think there are a lot of agnostic Christians that say, I believe in God, but I don't know for sure if that God exists. I have faith that he exists. I don't have knowledge that he exists. So that would be an agnostic. I think that the agnostic theist and agnostic atheist is the only rational, honest position. If someone says for certain that there is or is not a God, I think that they're just fooling themselves.
Right. Okay, cool. So if I was to ask you, how is the world created? We're here, there's intelligence in the world. I mean, there's intelligence in our biology and nature. How is it that in your worldview, do you believe it all came to be?
So I don't know for certain how the universe came to be, but there are a few things that we do know. Matter cannot be created or destroyed, matter and energy. So that would mean that the matter and energy that we interact with is eternal, not needing a creation. So I'm not convinced that the earth is a creation other than just a byproduct.
I'm going to pause you there. That's interesting. Okay. I'm trying to follow you along here. So, so what you're saying is that what we see in the created world, you believe that there's science to support that it's an eternal creation, like it just always existed?
There's to support that, yeah, absolutely, because you have that we know of right now, matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed. People will use that as this the law of thermodynamics all the time when they're trying to prove their stuff. So, and the Big Bang is sort of, I think, a misnomer for what people like to define as the creation of everything, but it's not. Matter was not created during the Big Bang. That was already there. So what happened before the Big Bang? Don't know. Was that matter and energy there beforehand? Maybe. Don't know. But the evidence that we have today right now would be that matter cannot be created or destroyed. So if it can't be created or destroyed, it's eternal.
Okay, interesting. What science backs that up? I'm not familiar. I've never heard of.
Second law of thermodynamics.
Okay, and what does that
conservation say? So that matter and energy can't be created or destroyed. So we can only change the form of matter. We can't destroy it. So like if you burn a pile of logs, the logs don't cease to exist. They're converted into gas and heat. And that energy is still there. It's not destroyed. So we can't destroy the energy. So if we can't destroy it, we can't create it. It's eternal.
Right. Okay. So now I'd like to talk about how, as an atheist, do you go about setting a morality for yourself? Like, how do you know right or wrong? How do you know what path to take and stuff like that?
But I think that it's complicated. I do believe in an objective morality. And that's one of my, I would say, biggest gripes with some Christianity, because I don't think that most Christians believe in an objective moral universe. They have a subjective moral view. But consent is a big one. Empathy is another one. We have empathy. You know what it's like to get stabbed. I know what it's like to get stabbed. I wouldn't want to get stabbed. Therefore, I don't inflict that on somebody else. That's kind of how I know right from wrong, is through that. Obviously, some of it's culture, the way that you're brought up, what you're told by your parents and others. Some law, but law is not always an indication of morality. Right. As it has been wrong in the past. And I don't think I have perfect morality. I don't know if we can have perfect morality, because we don't have the knowledge of everything. Right. So, but that's how I'd say it comes down a lot to consent and empathy. Those are two things that we have as a species that we can use. Mm-hmm. And we're not the only species on the planet that has morals, that, is able to make difficult decisions about things like that, including machines that make difficult moral decisions. So that is kind of just a way that the human observes certain situations and then tags a moral stance to it. Okay. I'm trying to fly. It's a little confusing for me here. So, because in my worldview, God sets those standards, right? So for me, there's an objective standard out there. God decides. Humanity, we all have different views on what morality is. And you agree that there's something out there, right? So stealing is wrong for everyone, right? I mean, so we could take, I don't want to go to that extreme, but like infant murder. There's no right reason to murder an infant. I don't believe that there's a moral reason to murder an infant. Most Christians would agree that, there's no right way to murder an infant. But if the God of the Bible then murdered an infant, that would make him immoral. And if we change the rules to meet he can do it because he created him, well, now it's subjective. We have a subjective moral view that he has a set of rules, we have a set of rules. There's not an objective don't murder infants, But it's always wrong to steal. If I know what that feels like from empathy, I wouldn't want to be, stolen from. That's why you feel bad about it when you steal stuff. Some people don't, you can have problems, but that's what I mean by objective. It's objectively wrong to murder an infant. I can't think of any reason why that's okay. It's objectively wrong to own a slave or own another person's property. Things like that. That's where I have that problem with the God of the Bible or the God of the Quran or whatever, because they all have kind of similar traits.
Right. So you're talking about, God's, see, and this is where this is where there's going to be a little bit of a disagreement here,
Yeah, of
because
course.
those interpretations that you have of those verses and stuff, I don't agree with them, right? I don't believe that the Bible condones slavery. When I believe that what if you interpret it, what you're going to see is that it's basically like having a house worker, right? Like back in the day, this was a very common practice, and that's the terminology that was associated. The killing of infants, when you see that, I believe in Genesis 6, I believe that there was an intermingling with fallen angels and man. We talk about in the Bible, there's a race of giants. And so, and so the interpretation of scripture here is different. So I don't believe that those are proper interpretations of those verses. What I would like to do, in fact, maybe for a follow-up episode, is maybe have you give me those, and specifically, I can write them down and we can discuss, and look at maybe more of the context. Because here's, and I'm not saying you do this, but a lot of atheists, this is what I see. They go to the scriptures and they're looking for stuff that's wrong, okay? There's a hatred for God. They absolutely hate God. And I'm not saying this is the reality for all of you guys, but many of you will go and when you hate something, you're gonna have a bias, right? So it's almost as if they're looking for things. And oftentimes, and we can look at this when you're looking at these interpretations that atheists makes, like, man, when I sit with my pastor, we're doing good Bible study. We're looking at context. We're looking at what it meant in the Hebrew. We're looking at commentary, historical commentary on those verses. And so I feel like a lot of times you guys are looking for those things. Now, on that topic about hating God, I sit back and I see you out there, and you're passionate about going after belief and all that. Why do you think that's good? Why do you think that's a beneficial thing?
So to answer your first question, Leviticus 25:44 or 45 through 46. That's the one that that's kind of the one that did it in for me. Exodus 21, that whole chapter is going to be the slavery manual. Specifically, the last part of 21 will give you instructions on how to treat death of a slave, death of an ox. What happens if an ox, like if you leave your gate open and an ox kills somebody, like there's a whole set of rules in there. So that's one. But then Leviticus 25:45 would be the 45 through 46 would be the one that probably clears it up most. And I did seek, so Dr. Joshua Bowen, who's an Assyriologist, which means he's a doctor of Mesopotamian history, has written a book on the matter called "Did the Old Testament Endorse Slavery?" Very good write-up from a Christian perspective or atheist perspective. The guy speaks Sumerian, he speaks Greek. He can read it and write it. He knows those languages. He's very familiar with the ancient languages. He breaks it down pretty well about what was going on in the history at the time. So I do seek context. I didn't just read Leviticus 25 and go, oh, aha, gotcha. That was a good one. And in many cases, I was still a Christian when I read these things, and I was looking for evidence to back myself up, with like, well, you got this wrong. Like, let me look into this. And as I looked into it, I realized that no, I was wrong about that. But why do I attack belief? I think sometimes certain people like me, when I was a theist, are very defensive. And we don't think that we could be wrong. And so we don't engage in discussion about that. So I don't want the easy ones. I want the people that are very devout, the ones that think they're right, the ones that are very, what's the word? Proud of themselves.
Okay.
Those are the people that I want to come to me to discuss, to debate, to talk, whatever.
Right.
And you don't get them by asking them nicely. But,
I am one who I would say that Christianity is an exclusive truth. Yeah. Jesus is the way, and I am engaging in debate.
But you're not, right? You're not the ones that I'm concerned about. Like, I'm not too concerned about the way that you go about it. It's not, that detrimental to society, in my opinion. But you do have a lot of people that are dangerous in their own thought process that need to think about it. I don't care if I come at a Christian with, hey, your book, exposing slavery or whatever, and they say, no, look, I've researched this. Let's talk about it. Like, that's cool. And even after the discussion, I feel like I still don't think that you're right. I'm still right. Like, fine. It's the people that are like, I'm right, you're wrong, we're not talking about it. Like, they won't open their mind to at least discussing and criticizing what could be wrong. And I will take any idea that I have or belief that I have, I don't care if it's religious, personal, scientific, and push it through the same level of skepticism to keep myself level, so that I'm not having a biased opinion as much as I possibly can as a human, and try and keep it as a level playing field. So I want people to apply skepticism to their beliefs. And some people take a little bit more of a nudge than others to apply that skepticism.
Right. No, and I would agree. I believe that a true Christian is going to seek out, like I came by study. I was a truth seeker. I looked and pursued for truth. For me, I went down, I was born in a Roman Catholic family as well. So I have the exact same background as you did. Now obviously I'm Protestant now. And I would even argue that what we see as a representation, of course, in Roman Catholicism is not a true representation. You have in the Bible, if we look, right, Jesus's greatest adversaries were these religious people. It wasn't the Romans. It was the Pharisees, Sadducees, and teachers of the law. And so it was the people to the people of Israel that represented the priest class that, in fact, pressured the Roman government to crucify Jesus. And so you can take religion into a legalistic fashion. And Jesus, in fact, those are the people that he was most intense towards. If you look at kind of right before the crucifixion, he's in the temple and he has kind of a freak out on them, calling them out for being hypocrites and basically putting on a facade of holiness on the outside, but not truly being legit. So, I think I can agree on that sense that there are within the body of Christ, there's wolves in sheep's clothing, right? And that's even in fact something that Jesus warned us about. And I think that the problem is that sometimes you see what's going on with, they're out there and they're spreading hate, and they got, the Westboro Baptist is, the typical, that's like a Pharisee. Okay. That's a modern day taking what Jesus has taught and using it in a demonic way. Like, that stuff is wicked. In fact, some of the you want to be a great devil, be a devil, but masquerade yourself as a believer. Right. So I can agree with that. And I understand that, if we're looking at Christianity in general, we need to be careful because there are those within here that claim to know God. And this has been going on since the day of Jesus. Right. Are you able to distinguish that? Do you see that there's a difference there?
I do. You do. But that's from our point of view. And so it's kind of a no true Scotsman fallacy. These people are reading the same book that you and I are reading and coming to a different conclusion. So the motivation there, if we're saying that they're faking it, let's say, I think that they think they're doing the right work. I think that they think that they're doing the Lord's work as they see fit.
I believe that too, but I would say that they're self-deceived, right?
But how do they know this? If they don't know, and they think they're doing the right thing, that's where the problem lies.
So the problem is that we need to let Jesus himself define Christianity, right? If Christianity means I'm a follower of Christ, we have to go to the Gospels and see what Jesus himself describes as, a true Christian. So it's not
what do you think they're doing? What do you think they're doing wrong?
Well, in fact, if you look, Jesus confronted them in his day and called them out. So some of the things that he said is, you put on an outer garment of righteousness and holiness, but inside you're full of corruption. You don't produce the fruit. So Jesus, by definition, Jesus is the one that tells us what a Christ follower is. It's not me. It's not whatever. Now, of course, we all have an interpretation, but he existed, and he himself defined what his followers would look like. He defined what a wolf in sheep's clothing would be. So, and what we do as Christians, I would hope, is align ourselves best as possible with what a true Christian is by Jesus's definition, not my own. Right? I have to, as best as possible, see what he defined us as. And so if I see Jesus defining a Christian in a certain way, and I see someone working completely opposite to it, and Jesus calling out a certain people group who put on this garment of religion on the outside, these Pharisees, and he actually called them devils. He said, you guys can't escape hell. He condemned them to hell. He said, you're not going to escape hell. And this was in the temple. This is what upset the Pharisees so much that they went to the Romans and they're like, yo, we got to get rid of this guy. This guy's too much, right? So Jesus defines what a Christian is. And a true Christian will seek to be a follower of that.
But what do you think Westboro's doing? What do you think Westboro's doing that they got it wrong? Because I'm assuming they're reading the same Gospels.
Well, they also should read 1 Corinthians chapter 13, which says that we are bankrupt without love, that love is kind, love is patient, it is gentle, it keeps no record of wrongs. And there's a whole definition, a criteria to define this love. We know that Christians operate in love. We also see...
But what are they... I'm saying, like, what are they doing wrong?
Well, I hate to cut you up. They're just full of... So Jesus said...
Why do they think they're doing the right thing, though? Because I'm assuming they don't... But how do they? What is that their fault? Like, what's the fault there?
Well, from my perspective, they're spiritually lost, and they're so spiritually lost that they're in a condition where they think they're found. Jesus said, "Many shall say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, have I not?" And they're going to list a whole bunch of things: done great and mighty works in your name, prophesy in your name, cast out demons in your name, and Jesus will tell them, "I never knew you," meaning, you never represented me. I've never adopted you into my family. I've never made you a son. So Jesus himself warned us about these false converts, right? People who are under a spiritual delusion. They actually think they're Christian. They actually, like you're saying, right? And I think it's also it's super dangerous. It's super destructive. When you hear about things like, religion created wars. No, it was these Pharisees who took the things of Jesus, twisted it, and then started to use it for control, manipulation. We actually see this a lot in the Roman Catholic Church, right? They only translated the Bible in Latin and basically didn't let anyone read the Bible, right? Because they wanted to use the things of God in order to control people. Now, how we broke free from that is Martin Luther takes the Bible and translates it into the language of the common day people. All of a sudden, we're reading it, and we're going, well, wait a second here. This doesn't line up with what these guys in these robes looking all holy are saying, right? So we go to the Bible and Jesus alone to define that and all that. So these are people that are spiritually deceived. They are under a delusion. Yes, they think themselves to be true followers of Jesus, but when, I know you don't believe this, but this worldview, if they were to see Jesus today, he would tell them like, yo, no, you don't belong to me, even if you think you do.
But if they say, well, you're saying, so they're deceived, they say you're deceived and you're wrong. So how can we distinguish who's right and who's wrong? Because they have a different interpretation of what Jesus said. They have a different interpretation of the exact same verses that you just gave.
Right. So I think,
from me, so like I'm an external perspective, and it's not just you, but you have 1,000 other people that have a different interpretation of,
so I think this
words.
Goes to objective truth. One is objectively right, and one is objectively wrong. One is deceived, and one isn't. Right. So it's not a matter of I think I'm true. They think I think I'm a real follower of Jesus. They think they're a real follower of Jesus. One of us is right. One of us is wrong. We both can't be right.
You both could be wrong.
Sure. But what I try and do is I consistently try and line myself up to be a good disciple, a good follower of Jesus Christ. Christian means I'm a follower. So I look at his teachings. I make sure that I line up with what he says, to be loving, to be kind. Another good analogy that I think can help you here. Jesus talked about a good tree can only produce good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. And so Jesus is saying you will know the fruit is actions, right? So if someone is never produced, the fruit of the Spirit is gentleness, kindness, love, self-control, and there's other ones. And so when you see a Christian, they should be producing spiritual fruit. These people that are producing rotten fruit are, by the fact that they're producing the rotten fruit, displaying themselves to be false, according to what Jesus said. Jesus told us, hey, you want to know how someone follows me? Examine the fruit. Even if they say that they're following me and they produce bad fruit, doesn't matter. That tree is going to be cut down and thrown into the fire because it doesn't produce good fruit. They will be the ones on the judgment day saying, Lord, Lord, have I not? And man, imagine that. Like, think about it. The verse starts off by Lord, Lord. So they're acknowledging lordship, that he's their God. And they're acknowledging that they thought they were in relationship with him, but they're finding out after they dead, raised up for the judgment. That's when they find out they weren't. Okay. So do you understand that? Or?
Oh, I get what you're saying, but I guess, and we don't have to stay on this topic. It's your word versus their word. And that's where it gets a little muddy. Now, Westboro Baptist Church is an extreme case, obviously, but it is very difficult for me to even define what it means to be a Christian, because there are so many Christians that I've interacted with at this point that it's very muddy water. And I can read the Bible, obviously, and have my own interpretations about it, and what Jesus said and did and all those things. And I think there's lessons to be learned there, even as an atheist or as a non-supernatural being, the Jesus character. I think there's messages there, just like you can learn, right and wrong in a Tom and Jerry cartoon. But this life producing, you're going to produce this fruit and this, they're saying the same stuff about the way that other people live their lives. And, you have all these different sects of Christianity kind of competing with each other over who has the right Christian. And that's where that no true Scotsman fallacy comes into play with the Westboro Baptist Church, because they think they're Christian. Obviously they think they're doing the right things. I don't think that we have a test that we can put
But we
through.
do. It's Jesus's word. You take Jesus' word and you line it up with their life. That's the test.
Yeah, but Jesus' word is subjective.
Not necessarily. It's pretty clear, right? Love, kindness, gentleness. You can look at someone and see those things, can't you?
So then why are there so many Christian denominations that don't follow that?
In what sense? What do you mean? They don't follow love?
Well, yeah, like there's so many, like I would say the entire Catholic organization reads the same book. They're wrong. We talk about Mormons. They're wrong. You talk about Jesus Christ, the scientist. You could talk about the people that hold snakes in South Georgia. I could talk about one of the Baptist churches right over here that has quite disturbing things written on their little board. So, and we always hear about those kinds. There are a lot of Christians that don't line up with that worldview. So it's muddy. It's not a clear definition. And that's one of the reasons I have a problem with this, and not just Christianity, but all religions. We have an all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful deity that has a dire message for us, the most important message for our existence, and has chosen to give it to us in such a way that it has been perverted, it has been bastardized, it's been added to, it's been removed, it's been translated unneeds times. By the time I get the message from this God, it's not the same message. And if he's all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful, he could get the message to me unmolested, directly. I don't need a man to tell me what God means to me. Like, I always have to go to an authority figure or a book. And that's where I think I have an issue. Muslims do the same thing with Islam, where, Muhammad was visited by an angel. Like, well, if he can visit Muhammad, he can visit me with a book. But I just don't think a book is the most, like, let's say you're in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And you have cancer and you're dying of cancer. And I'm halfway across. Why is my fan kicking up? Hold on, let me turn this down. Something must have flew in here. Turn my fan all the way up. So you're in Canada, you're in the hospital, you're dying, you have cancer. And I'm in the middle of Africa or something. And I have the cure for your cancer. How am I going to give it to you? I'm going to call you directly and say, hey, here it is, in the easiest terms possible. No poetry, no, allegorical stuff. It's going to be the direct message. This is what you need to do to solve yourself from cancer. I'm definitely not going to give that message to another person to then translate into a different language over thousands of years, to then add and subtract and then somehow get to you eventually in some form and hope that it's the correct version that you needed to get and see. So I just find it to be a very ineffective way. And I think we're limiting the power of an alleged God. Like, if one did exist, I think it would, one, surpass gender. It wouldn't be a he, it'd be a whatever. And two, would be able to communicate with me directly in a way that I would understand and believe without having another person involved. Because we know, you and I know, people can't be trusted. We can't trust people.
Amen. So I'm actually going to jump in here on 2 points that you made. And I think you've got it bang on. Don't go to man. Get on your knees, Jeff, and go to Jesus himself if you want to know him. If you truly want to know him, stop looking at what other people are saying. Stop looking at the confusion within Christianity. If you have an honest heart to seek him and you go to him directly, he will, it's personal revelation. It's a spiritual personal revelation of Jesus Christ. He uses the Bible and his word. The Holy Spirit interprets it. I understand what you mean. You can get absolutely confused if you go to man. Man is not God, right? I've seen this happen a lot in churches where people go in and they're more looking at the pastor. They're more looking at all these different people. I always encourage people, just go right directly there to him. He's waiting for us, because if you're looking to man, or you're letting the confusion amongst Christians be confusing or clouding, it's not going to be, you're going to get confused. So absolutely, don't go to man. Go to God directly. He makes himself available to all men.
So when you said earlier, like, to understand the context and do these other things, how are you finding the context for different verses if you're not going to another person?
What's that?
Like
okay, so what happens is when you accept Jesus Christ, like you cry out to him, you want to seek him, he gives you the Holy Spirit. The thing about the Bible is it says that it is spiritually discerned. We need the Holy Spirit. So trying to understand the Bible without the Holy Spirit, according to Scripture, would be like someone trying to just pick up a book that's Chinese and figure it out. It is spiritually discerned and understood. Okay, so this is where people who don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ, because this is the thing, I have a real relationship with Jesus Christ. He's active in my life. He helps me. He heals me. He's my God. I worship him. He's done amazing things in my life. That's a very real thing. I've become born again. It was an experience where I surrendered my heart to him. I accepted the free gift of salvation. He places within me the Holy Spirit. Then the Holy Spirit allows me to be, Jesus said, the Holy Spirit will lead you into all truth. So the Holy Spirit's function that is within a believer is to personally lead that believer to ultimate truth in Christ and also in doctrine. Sometimes I'm not saying that man is always bad, because that would be ignorant, right? It's not. Sometimes there are very good, and I'm sure you would agree that not everyone, you can listen to certain people and they can have good input, whether they're Christian or not, right? So sometimes God does use commentaries, and he does use pastors, and he does use evangelists or prophets or whatever as a way to deepen that truth. But if you don't have the Holy Spirit inside of you, when you're listening to them and you don't have a grounding in God's word, that's when you're going to be led astray. I just want to touch on also just quick. You talked about God having a gender. God doesn't have a gender. What it is the Bible says that God is love and he is light and he's eternal. But one of the things that the Bible does is he will display himself. I forget the exact terminology here, but it's one of the ways in which a infinite being that surpasses all understanding is able to convey himself in an understandable fashion to his finite creation. God is above our understanding. His ways are above ours. So one of the things is he'll say that, like, come under my wing. Well, God doesn't have wings. You know what I mean? Like, these are ways that he is using these analogies and stuff. He is the Father. He birthed creation, right? So he's the Father in that sense. But is God sitting there with a big beard and is legitimately a man? No. He's the essence of everything. He's the starting point. But he doesn't have an exact gender in that sense of it. let's move on. Let's go to afterlife, okay? Because we're all here, you know, atheists and Christians, and everyone will face death. What is it in your world? What is it in your view? You know, what is death? What's after death? Do you have anything?
I mean, all of my memories, you know, all of those things that make me who I am are involved in my brain. So if my brain ceases to function, I no longer function. I no longer exist. So I would say that after death is like before birth. You know, like if you don't have a brain, then you can't be an observer of anything.
Okay, so yeah.
And I will be cremated and blown into space.
Okay. So yeah, you just don't believe that there's anything out there. So you wouldn't believe... Sorry, go ahead.
It could be. I don't know. But okay. I know I do know is that, what I do know is that my brain is required for me to be an observer. And if my brain is not working, then I can't observe. Yeah, I can't form new, you know, memories. I can't dwell on old memories. I can't do anything. So I would just cease to exist and be put into a small capsule and blown into space. That's what's in my will so far. It's cheap. It's about the same price as a normal burial, by the way.
Okay, so
it's like this big, and they shoot you.
You don't believe in the soul, so you don't believe that a human has a soul.
I don't have any evidence to point towards a soul. Like I have no reason to accept that as truth, other than other people's opinion.
Okay. So if you don't believe that there's anything past here, there's no divine justice, right? You don't believe in a judgment, that we're going to face God. So what's the point of being good and bad? What's the point of being good? If here I'll just lay out where I get stuck on atheism, right? It's like, okay, why be moral? It doesn't make sense. From that perspective, why even be nice to people? If it is, you know, we were created from a big bang and we're nothing more than just a little bit more evolved of a monkey or whatever, right? Why be good? Because survival of the fittest, right, is the philosophy. It would be stupid for me, right, to be good, to care about other people, not live a life that's all about me, because guess what? There's no consequences after life. So why be moral? Where does the human conscience come in? Why do we, I believe that God has imprinted right and wrong on our hearts, and this is why we will know right from wrong, and one day deep down we know we will face him. We're going to give an account. That's why we have this sense. But atheism, from that worldview, I don't get it. Listen, if I was an atheist, the last thing I would be was good. I'd be ripping everyone off. Okay, what would be the point? It would be stupid and foolish to be good, because I don't want to be weak. Being good, if there's no God who's blessing me and looking over, what's the point? Just for the sake of it, just because. Because
so 3 points there. One, I don't think that Christianity has a correct view of divine justice either. And the example I would give there is, if I was raped and murdered and, you know, I went to heaven because I was a devout whatever, and my rapist and murderer eventually converted to Christianity and was truly wrong for what he did, he would also go to heaven. So that, in my opinion, is not divine justice. Two, if you're only good because you're afraid of punishment or reward, then I would say that you may not be a good person to begin with. You shouldn't need a motivation to be a good person. Three, again, empathy. I have empathy. It's a
Okay, hold on. I'm writing these down.
Oh, okay.
That last point you said?
If you need a punishment reward system in order to be a good person, then I don't think you're a good person. Like I don't think that you would do that. Like if you didn't believe in God, I still think you'd be a good person. Good people do good things, regardless of where they are. And sometimes religion takes credit for that. And that's how that's kind of perpetuated. But from an evolutionary standpoint, it is not beneficial to the tribe for a rogue agent. Rogue agents do not survive. They do not pass on their genes. So it is bred into us to work as a tribe. Tribal mentality is how we work. We work with other people. We build communities. 99% of people work that way. Now, there's exceptions for people that have something wrong with them, genetic imperfections. Something in their brain is not right. And so I don't go this far, but there are atheists out there that believe that nobody's really responsible for their actions. That, you know, if somebody's a rapist or murderer, it's not really their fault. It's due to a defect in their brain that they don't have control over. You know, like the Ohio school shooting guy, the guy that on the clock tower was knocking people off.
Yeah.
Weeks before that, he was saying, like, something's wrong with me, you know, like whatever. On the autopsy, they found a tumor in his brain pushing on one of the lobes that you need in order to make decisions in right and wrong. So is it really his fault that, you know, he did that, or was it a biological problem that contributed to it? So that's why it's a evolutionary thing. It is not beneficial for me to be a rogue agent by myself. That doesn't work because the tribe's going to turn on me.
I'm going to argue against that.
Sure, you can.
There's a mobster today. Okay, we know mob connected.
Yeah, sure.
Probably behind a lot of the police. You know, like, let's be real. Probably so high up there that many of the mobsters, it's super beneficial for them. Evil has worked and paid off so well. They're going to go to the grave after being with so much blood on their hands.
But so the mob is Christian. They're not atheists. They believe in God. Okay,
so again, remember what I said at the beginning about those false ones. By Jesus' definition, not by the proclamation of the mob.
But they believe it.
I don't care. It doesn't matter.
It does, because if they're atheist, then they have no moral standard. If they're religious, they have a moral standard unless they don't have the one that you like. Then it's, okay, well, they're not really true Christians. What if I were to say the same thing about an atheist that commits a crime? I say, well, they're not really a true atheist because, you know, that, like, you would have to own it.
But you don't, you see, atheism, there wasn't, atheism.
Is it possible the salvation? They think they can just,
Christian is a Christ follower. We need to leave the definition of Christianity to Jesus. Atheism, it doesn't come from one person, right? So it's not like there was Mr. John Atheist who said, hey, listen, I'm going to disciple people. This is the way to be an atheist. These are the requirements. Anyone who has any difference than this, you can put it through the test. Here's the test. This is a good tree. This is a bad tree.
So do you think they're faking it?
Because Jesus defines Christianity. I think you keep stumbling on this. You keep falling on trying. Again, Jesus said there would be wolves in sheep's clothing. The mob. If you're going out there and you're murdering and you're lying and you're an outlaw, okay? By Jesus's definition, not mine.
Sure.
Jesus, who gets to define what his followers are like, you're not. And Jesus shall say to those people on that day, Lord, Lord, have I not? And he's going to get rid of them. He's going to say, depart from me. I never knew you, you workers of iniquity. So you who claimed to be of me, but yet did evil, you don't belong to me. Okay? So just because someone claims to be Christian doesn't mean they are. We need to keep the definition of Christianity to Jesus himself and his definition, and use his test as found in the Gospels to line up to see if that is true. Okay, so just we went.
Do you think that they believe in God?
Sure, but belief in God won't. You can believe in God.
No, I'm just wondering, because the question was, if you don't believe in God, then why have morals? These people believe in God, and they don't have the right morals.
I'll explain that. I believe that God exists and that God has on every human heart written the law. You know that conscience we have? He gave us that. Okay? So the reason that we will just feel bad and convicted, even a little child, they'll know, right? If they go and do something, they're going to have their conscience eat at them. You know? I don't know. When I was a teenager, I was super involved into nonsense. And I remember one time I stole a whole bunch of stuff, and I sat there and I was just tormented by my conscience. Something inside of me was telling me, no. What is that? Is that evolution? You know?
Mm-hmm. It's empathy.
It's empathy. Where does that come from?
So you know what it's like through personal experience at some point. So, for example, and this is just my personal take on it, 6 years old, 5 years old, I don't know, somewhere around there, go to the shoe store to buy new shoes, and there was a pair of shoes. I never forget what they looked like. I think they were Converse. And they had a picture of like a school bus on the side. They looked like a big school bus. Ugly shoe. But it came with these little sponges that you threw in your bathtub, and they turned into dinosaurs. And I took those sponges. I took the sponges. I didn't want the shoes, but I took the sponges. And I stole them and I played with them in my bathtub. I didn't think anything was wrong until my mom found out what I did and punished me for it. Now I knew I did something wrong. And that is where I learned why stealing is wrong. Not because I had some sort of internal conscience, but because my mom told me that it was wrong and explained to me why it's wrong and why thievery is wrong. Now, as I grew up, I had bikes stolen from my house before. I've had RC cars stolen from my house before, things like that. I know what it feels like to have something stolen. So I can empathize with another person that's lost an item. It has nothing to do with necessarily a higher moral standard. I just know what it's like. And some people, we see this, don't have that same empathy for whatever reason. They may have not had the same life lessons, the same experience, the same upbringing. Maybe they have a genetic problem or a chemical imbalance that's causing, a decision-making issue. It could be substance of the environment. All of those things contribute. And that's more of an evolutionary explanation than, a deity imprinting this moral code, which he doesn't even adhere to.
Right. Okay. So let's draw it back a little bit here, because I had a couple points here. I'm getting a little sidetracked. You talked about earlier, you talked about it being flawed when it comes to the judgment, right? And you said something along the lines of someone committing an act. And,
yes.
Okay, I want to touch on that.
So if I'm raped and murdered.
Yeah, that one.
So if I'm raped and murdered and my rapist and murderer decides to convert truly to Christianity, he goes to heaven, he or she goes to heaven, and so do I. So now my rapist and murderer is in heaven. Right.
So you don't believe that forgiveness is a thing? You don't think that we No. Okay.
No. I mean, I'm culpable for the actions I take in this lifetime.
Okay.
So I have to be aware of how I affect other people. Since I don't believe that there's this, afterlife, or judgment where everybody's going to square up. It has to happen today, now. Yeah. So if I wrong somebody, I need to make that right in my lifetime. It doesn't, there's not extra innings for me to clear that up.
Right. Okay. Well, on that topic, on that right there, the central message of Christianity is forgiveness. The entire cross of going to the cross was so that Jesus could forgive us by taking on the penalty. And so I can understand why it's difficult, right? But when I came into relationship with Jesus Christ, I've done bad stuff. You've done bad stuff. I'm sure you'll admit that. No, we all lie. We all do certain things that are immoral, right? What God did is he sent his son to die for all our wrong actions. And the Bible, once God has forgiven me, I'm called to forgive others. If that murderer rapist has a genuine repentance means they've transformed. I'm not talking about, I just feel bad and about the consequences, I'm going to jail. I'm talking about this person breaks down, feels convicted, starts weeping, starts trying to make amends, turns to God for forgiveness, and God gives that person forgiveness. I'm a little bit different than you, man. I do believe that that's a great and fantastic thing. And what God has done is he's forgiven me of everything that I've done. And so he says, forgive others as I have forgiven you. So when people sin against me or hurt me or do things against me, because God has forgiven me through his son, I'm able to forgive others. And it's actually one of the best things in my walk with Christ, because unforgiveness leads to bitterness, and it's going to rot in your heart. And spiritually and emotionally and mentally, it's just better when we don't hold that. And God will hold people accountable. The beautiful thing is I know God's going to take care of them. Men are flawed. That murderer rapist is potentially going to get away with it. They're going to maybe just go whatever. But I know if they don't truly repent, if they don't get to a place where they really are convicted about it, know it's wrong, and are transformed, are born again, they were this, then all of a sudden this person becomes reformed and transformed, and they're out there at the homeless shelter feeding, and it's a whole new life. I love redemption stories. I love seeing people go from a lifestyle. I minister to homeless men and addicts, and it's one of the most amazing things that I get to see is the power of God to transform people that have done some pretty wicked, evil things. And so, I think that I guess we disagree on that. I think that forgiveness is a good thing, and I love that there's a God that is forgiving and sent His Son to forgive us. Let's tie into. Let's continue here. Okay, so there's no. You said something along the lines of because. I'm only doing this because of a punishment. No, I'm not. I'm not obeying God because of a punishment, because God's going to punish me
or reward.
God created us in His image, right? And He gave us free will. We are in a fallen world, and there's the potential to do good and evil. That's the reality of why it is that we set out to do those things. So
this could turn into a really long conversation when I tell you I don't believe in free will.
I'd love to hear about it.
That's like another hour, though. Free will is a deep concept.
Jeff, I'm really enjoying our conversation. I think a lot of viewers as well were thinking, because of your name, I think they got the feeling that this wouldn't be a fruitful conversation. I'm generally not concerned. I'm generally interested in getting to know you. Give me a little tidbit. What do you mean there's no free will?
So, being able to do one thing or the other is not free will. Free will would be able to choose between all possible outcomes. And so I don't have the free. So, for example, I can't, and I don't want to, but I'm just saying, I can't hurt you right now, right? There's just physically, I don't have the ability to do anything to harm you right now. Does that mean I don't have free will because I'm being restricted from being able to hurt you? So let's say God gave us all force fields, okay, so that we couldn't hurt each other. That doesn't necessarily remove like this alleged free will. We never had it in the first place. There's restrictions we have all over the place on things that we can't do. Just because it's available within our reality doesn't mean that it's free will. It's an illusion of free will. We have the ability to observe the functions of our brains making decisions. That's consciousness. But those decisions have already been made by the chemicals in your brain. And this has been tested. And they can do things where we can watch on a brain scan somebody's decision happen before they're aware that the decision has been made. We can predict the decisions they're going to make before they're aware that they've made said decision. So we are just the observers of those actions that are happening, but we're not making conscious decisions between those things. It's an illusion.
So who's in the driver's seat?
That's a good question. I guess it would be your chemicals and other parties at play inside your brain. Natural processes.
Interesting. So how does that fit in?
Which is why some atheists say that you're not really culpable or for anything you do. I don't think that's the case, but some will say like you're not responsible for anything that you do because, it's just bacteria and chemicals in your brain.
Okay. So I just want to understand here. So, a Big Bang happens billions of years.
Sure.
And now what are we? Are we just automated like robots in a certain sense? Like just
biological robots.
Biological robots. Okay.
So, I mean, if you look at the way your brain works, it works off electricity. It works off of the way neurons work is very similar to a computer. It's more complex, but we know through where we're at in neurology how decisions are made, and it's not made the way that we think. We don't sit here and weigh the pros and cons and some sort of free will. What we have is a limited ability there, and we're just the observer of that. I can't choose to be wealthy. I can't choose to fly. I don't have free will to do what I want. It's restrictive. So we don't have this extra free will. And in fact, in many cases, there are stories in the Bible where free will is removed from people, so I don't think that from a biblical standpoint we have free will. I mean, you have 2 Kings where, kids make fun of a bald man and they get murdered. So what's their free will? And why were they removed? Why was their life removed for such a trivial thing like making fun of a bald man? But Satan is allowed to do whatever he wants right now. and never gets like removed of power. Like we can't touch Satan. We can't stop his free will. But these kids that made fun of a bald man, kill him. You know, so there's some fairness there that I can't get behind. But, you know, free will seems to be there's a lot more to it. And I'm trying not to get too deep into it because then we'll be here all night.
All right. Well,
that's like a whole nother conversation.
I'd like to have you on for that.
Yeah.
But okay, so you have this Big Bang. We're here.
Yes.
Because the thing that I always find interesting in the dialogues is, you know how you're saying you would run into Christians who weren't interested in an actual dialogue? I run into that with atheists all the time.
Yeah, it's going to happen. I think it's just a people thing. Right? People like what they think they know. Yeah. They don't want to admit that they could be wrong.
Yeah.
And I think the smartest people in the world are the ones that are aware of how little they know. So like one of the guys that I know is his brother's a quantum physicist, professor. Mm-hmm. Okay. This guy, he's got a doctorate in quantum physics, and you'll ask him questions about stuff. And he's like, I don't know, man. Like that's, you know, like, I don't know about that. I don't know about this, but I'll get these kids on Instagram or TikTok that are like quantum physics this, and I'm an expert, blah, 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 blah. So it seems like the more that you know, the more you realize that you don't know. The smarter you are, the more you realize how little you actually know.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's kind of the thing. The smarter people that realize that they don't know what they're talking about, they don't go out and do what we're doing because they're afraid of looking stupid. So I've accepted the fact that I don't know, that I could be wrong at any time. This, you know, everything I said tonight could be absolutely 100% wrong, but I have to operate on the best available evidence and be open to being wrong. And if I'm open to being wrong and remove the human emotion, because, you know, we get emotional where we're like, you know, I don't want to be wrong. You know, you have to be aware of that.
I think a lot of it boils down to pride and humility.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. And so there's a thing called mental alchemy where you have to be aware of what's happening in your brain. So when you're first introduced to someone, your brain, from a perspective of survival, starts kind of like judging up some of these people. You know, oh, this person's this color or this race or this gender or this hair or this clothing. I'm sure you see that a lot with the homeless people you deal with. They can have an appearance that does not meet who they are. But we do this thing in our brain subconsciously where we judge them before we even talk to them.
Absolutely.
So, or if you get angry, you know, for a parent, you know, your 6-year-old breaks something and you get angry. Recognizing the fact that you're angry before you say something or do something is a way to make sure that you're not acting out of emotion. You're like, okay, I'm angry. They broke this. Let me think about it. And now let me react and say something to the child so that you don't say something you regret later. The same with a person you meet. You're like, you know, let me reserve my judgment until I've, you know, done my due diligence here on this person, and recognize that I just had a thought that says this person's homeless. I bet that they're, you know, a deadbeat or a drug addict or something. Like, stop that process from happening. And that's very difficult to do, but it allows you to remain neutral. And so that's something I try and practice when I interact with somebody or, you know, have a thought or realize my own emotional state, know where I'm at before I react.
Yeah. And I think that's wisdom. And I would agree that that's something that I didn't always practice in life, but I've learned to develop as I've matured. And it's a way more effective way of engaging in conversation. So I would run into atheists and, you know, so we're talking about the problem of evil and, you know, evil exists, right? You would, okay, so you're going to be the first atheist to probably answer this. From the atheist worldview, why does it exist? So the Big Bang happens, like, to me, it's like, that is so dark, right? What's the hope? I mean, we live in an evil world where, like, why would evolution just make us, this is a pointless, there's no meaning other than the meaning. Like, man, that's going to lead to some depression, to some dark spots, right? Like, there's
we are bags of meat on a rock. I said we are bags of meat on a rock.
Yeah, that's pretty
through
crazy.
Space. Yes.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's a path to nihilism, and honestly, I was more of a nihilist as a Christian because this life is meaningless. Like,
just
what's the point?
Can you explain nihilist? I know a lot of viewers might be coming to this that are new.
Nihilism is kind of a space where everything is meaningless. It doesn't matter It's very depressing.
Yeah.
So for me, I hated eternity. I hated the idea of eternity. It gave me super bad anxiety to think about eternity, even in heaven. Because I assumed I was going to heaven because I was, devout Catholic.
Oh, I lost. I can't hear you. Oh,
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was devout Catholic, so I assumed I was going to heaven. And my concern was I didn't like eternity. I didn't like the idea of living another day and another day and another day. Anxiety attacks is like a 10-year-old in my bed at night.
Wow.
So that's one. What were we talking about? My ADD kicked in. Meaning of life. Meaning of life.
Yeah.
So as a Christian, I don't get it. I would find myself more in nihilism as a Christian, because it's like, what does it matter if I form a relationship with this girl? What does it matter if I watch this TV show? What does it matter if I get a job? What does it matter if I go to college? Because this life is meaningless. It's all about the next life. This is but a very short portion. This is what I was told in what were those classes called? The catechism classes? You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. The analogy they used was, imagine a giant brass ball the size of our sun. And every 1,000 years, a dove comes down and gently brushes that brass ball. By the time that brass ball is ground to dust, it will be the start of eternity. And I had a freaking panic attack. I'm like, I don't like this. 1,000 years, over millions of years, I'm going to be alive like in heaven, and I have to deal with this. There's no escape. I can't get away from it. So it was more of a nihilistic thing to me. From an atheist perspective, I have a beginning and I have an end. And I like my end. I like the ability to write my story and be done. It's the effect I have on the people around me, the shared experiences that we have, the suffering I may be able to reduce of the people around me and the people that I interact with, learning about the world as we have it, learning about the natural world, the natural order of things. Those are the meanings of life. I don't need a deity to give me a meaning or assign my own meaning. The analogy I use to that is, without a master, whose slave will I be? I don't have a master. I'm not a slave to anything or anybody. I can form my own opinions and form my own meaning in this lifetime.
Right. Okay. So on that, I just want to say that obviously I think Catholicism is a bad foundation. I don't know how you would get to, although that there's obviously an emphasis on eternity and the Christian is living for there's still meaning and purpose in this life. Absolutely. I live out my purpose every time I help an addict or a homeless person. That's the mission and the call of God on my life. It's not something that I chose for myself. I believe, you can obviously in your worldview, it would be different, but I believe that God has, all things were created by Jesus and for Jesus. And, we're in a fallen world, right? We become conscious and humanity starts asking themselves, why am I here? What is my purpose? So humans are lost, right? Whether you look at both worldviews, the entire pursuit of philosophy shows that at some level we're lost. And the Bible says that we are. And so sometimes we start becoming conscious in a certain sense and trying to find meaning and purpose. And I think it's very flawed when we try and assign a purpose to ourselves without looking as to our creator. It would be like a DVD player becoming conscious and then being like, you know what, I'm going to stick some toast in here because this is what I think I should be. Not looking to its manual, not looking to its creator to see what it was actually designed for. And I believe the true purpose comes from God and the creator. We are a creation that was created for a purpose. And so I think that there's a little bit of misunderstanding. The Christian worldview does teach that there's purpose in this life, that God has a calling for us, that he has a will for us, right? We pray, God, your will be done, meaning that there's something higher. And for me, I think that's a greater thing that I don't like. I couldn't assign myself this great a calling, or a purpose in life as because God knows my giftings. He know, like, I'm really effective with the men out there. I've been through this, you know, I've not homelessness, but addiction. And I go out there and I can connect with them, and I have certain giftings that God has given me to help. So I have a very
empathy. You have empathy. You've been through it yourself. You know what it's like.
Yeah, true. I
do
for the people
have
that, but I also believe I have a gift of communication. You know, I'm good to talk. I'm good to give counsel to the guys. I'm an encourager to the guys. So I have certain things that God gave me to equip me to be more effective in there. But, you know, we've been going for an hour. I've really enjoyed our conversation, Jeff. This went very well. I'd like to have you on again in the future for more.
Sure.
We can maybe go a little bit more in depth into other topics, but that's great. Is there anything maybe you want to ask me or close off in? Or?
No, I appreciate you having me on.
Okay, cool, man. Have yourself a blessed night, everyone watching. Thank you for joining us this evening. Anyone out there, if you want to come on and have a dialogue with me, I'm inviting anyone. If you're a witch, a Satanist, a Luciferian, an atheist, a New Ager, a yogi, whatever. I just want to engage in conversation with you and talk about some meaningful stuff. So, Jeff, thank you so much, man. God bless you.
Yeah, sure.
And have a great evening. Take care, guys.
See you later.
See you.